Okay, so this is what our app is going to look like at the end of the day. That is, after we successfully integrated Google Maps. So what do you think? It looks beautiful, right? But before we can have Google Map in our app, there's a couple of things that we need to do first of all. Number one, we need to first of all enable Google Maps API on Google Developers Console. That will be the first thing we need to do. Then secondly, we need to generate an API key, a map API key. And thirdly, we need to go to Visual Studio and install the map Nugget packages. And finally, we need to go ahead and complete all other important setup that we need to do to ensure our map shows up. So in this particular lecture, we're going to go to Google Developers Console and enable Google Map API on our project and also generate an API key for our map. So without wasting much time, let's open our Google Chrome so that we can go to our Google Developers Console. So to get to Google Developers Console, you just simply need to type in console.developers.google.com. So if you have a Gmail account, if you have a Google account, you can easily get to this point. So I'm currently logged in into my developers account. So this is what it will look like at the end of the day. Because I've already created some projects in the past, so that's why we are seeing this. So immediately you get to this point, what you need to do is to go ahead and create a new project. So you're going to see the button to create a new project somewhere around here. But in case you don't see it there, you can easily go to this drop down. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this drop down. So these are a couple of projects that I've created in the past, but I want to create a new project. So this is the button of interest. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and provide our project name. So I can easily call this Uber clone iOS. Okay, so after that, let's go ahead and click on create. So our project is being created. Alright, so our project has now been successfully created. So this is more like the dashboard for our project. The next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add Google Map API to this project. So before we get to that point, it's also very important that I call your attention to this. So Google gives you $300 worth of credit for a year to test out most of their APIs, because some of their APIs are paid APIs and you probably might need to add billing or set up a billing account for your Google project. So for my developers account, I already have billing set up. So as you can see, my billing is well activated. So for some APIs like Places API, you're probably going to be needing billing activated on your account. But we're going to get to that point. So let's go ahead and add Google Map API to our project first of all. So I'm going to go to the navigation menu. So I'm going to go to APIs and services. So I'm going to go ahead and select library. Okay, so now the library of interest is Map SDK for iOS. So I'm going to go ahead and select Map SDK for iOS. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and click on enable to enable this API in our project. Okay, so this API has now been successfully added to our project. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go back to our navigation menu, and instead of going to the library, we're going to go to credentials because we want to create an API key that we can use in our project. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create, click on API key. So an API key has automatically been created for us. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this API key because this is the API key that we're going to be using inside of our application. Alright, so now that we successfully created a new project on Google Developers Console and added Google Map API to the project and also generated an API key. So we've actually concluded with all the setup that we need to do here. The next thing we need to do will be to return to Visual Studio and continue with the setup, which is exactly what we are going to be doing in our next lesson. So see you in the next class.